Hello and welcome to your practice today. Today we will be doing a Hatha Vinyasa flow based on really honing in on our intention and the purpose for the movements and the asana that we'll find. To begin, find any comfortable seat. If you prefer, you may lay down, but there's an option to do a meditation, and we'd like to still have conscious awareness during our meditation. Sometimes laying down can make us feel a bit sleepy. So find your comfortable place to find stillness. You might close the eyes or allow the gaze to soften. And our first intention for our practice today is just to become more aware of ourselves. This might begin by you starting to follow the flow of your breath. Not aiming to change or control. Just allowing yourself to observe its flow. We might take a hand to the heart, to the belly, and inhale into the belly. Feel the breath expand into the palm that's resting there. Allow the inhale to continue to move up into the rib cage. Feel the rib cage moving out to the sides, front and back of the room. And then allow the inhale to then finally move into the chest. So you might feel that in your top palm resting on your heart. As we exhale, exhaling belly, so feeling the belly button maybe move closer towards the spine, the rib cage then moving slightly inwards, like hugging back to yourself, and the chest will move slightly away from the palm above the heart. Again, inhaling in, belly, rib cage, chest, and exhaling belly, rib cage, chest. Allowing the breath's movement in and out to follow the same pattern. Maybe doing this a couple more times on your own. This 3-part inhale, 3-part exhale. Just allowing ourselves to bring a bit more focus to our pranayama at the start of our practice. Allowing the theme of intention to begin from the get-go. And chart the course ahead. And you might stay with this 3-part inhale, 3-part exhale. Or you might choose to come to a little mini meditation based on the themes of today's practice. If that's the case, come to a natural flow of breath. Hands can always stay where they are or maybe come to rest somewhere in the lap. We find a natural flow of breath again, not trying to control or change. That is no longer going to be the focus of the meditation. Instead, we'll chant inside our head the mantra, Soham. Soham means I am that, or that I am. An excellent mantra for our focus, our intention of our practice today, to move with purpose, to perhaps introduce a bit of self-study into our practice. So when we're ready, I'll say aloud a few times just to help you on your way. Inhaling, exhaling. Soham. 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 And anytime you find the thoughts drift, as they very well will do, bring yourself back to the mantra, moving to cultivate our inward attention. And begin the process of getting to know ourselves a bit better. So hum. If you wish, you can carry on with this meditation and just zone my voice out of the background. You can always rewind and begin the rest of the practice at a later time. Otherwise, take a more conscious inhale in and out. We drop the chin towards the chest. And gently begin to open the eyes. Before lifting the chin away from the chest. And we're going to come to find ourselves on our backs if we didn't already choose to be there at the start. And finding yourself on your back, you might have your knees bent to begin with. But we will extend one of the legs out shortly. Quite good for a bit of prep or setup to start with both knees bent. We're going to take the right knee in towards our chest. You can interlace the hands on the shin or perhaps behind the thigh. Please note that if you need your arms to be longer, you can always use a strap or a scarf here. And we're going to extend the left leg out long. And when I say long, that is relative. You'll notice my leg, I've got a bit of a bend in the knee and the leg is very relaxed. We're going to give it a moment here to just settle into the space. Notice what the tailbone's doing. So is the tailbone nestling down onto the ground, the sacrum nestling down onto the ground? If not, allow it to start to meet the earth. It's okay if we have that natural curve in the low back. Just make sure that we're not rounding too much in it, over-exaggerating that curve. So the knee in towards the chest or alternatively out towards the armpit. And here we might just do a little rock side to side with the right knee, feeling into our hip flexor. Maybe we bring a bit of activation into the left leg, pushing the left heel away and drawing the toes more towards the face. And do the same with the right, a push of the heel and the toes as if they're coming towards your face or trying to touch your shin. And we'll find a little side to side here or gentle little circles. And then find a place for that leg to stay hugged in, and we'll all interlace the hands behind the thigh. And here you really want your torso or the side of your torso as close as possible to having that thigh touching. We're going to do these little extensions of our right leg where we'll kick the heel up towards the sky. The toes again as if they're trying to touch the shin or touch your face. And as we go through this movement, up and down, try and do so with some purpose, some intention. So here you may notice that my knee is remaining bent, even when I get to my top point. So we want to find that end range of movement to really work into our hamstring and find that end range of our mobility in this space. And doing this a few more times, you might find that as you kick up, there might be a shake. Maybe being mindful again of the tailbone, making sure it's still snug towards the ground. And next time that we extend the leg up to the sky, hold here. So it's torso towards thigh, heel to the sky. A nice little rhyme. Love it when that happens. Deep breath in. And out. Gently release back down. We're going to take our left hand to the outside of the right thigh, and we're going to take the right arm out to the side in a T, or maybe in a little cactus arm, completely up to you, finding a spinal twist. So as we move the right knee over towards the left, bear in mind that a twist is anything where our shoulders are facing in a different direction to our fronts of our hips. So here again, moving with intention, with purpose. It's okay if the right shoulder wishes to lift, but we have the intention of trying to plug it down towards the earth. And it's absolutely fine if the right knee doesn't come anywhere towards the ground, as long as we're moving the hip points to face in a different direction. You might choose to take the twist one step further and move your gaze over towards the right. Breathing here. Coming back through center. Place both feet down on the floor. You might have a little rejig of the hips, and we'll now cross the outside of, I say the right ankle, it's kind of the spot just above the right ankle, across the top of the left thigh, finding our figure 4 shape. And here we're just going to do a couple little rocks up and down again on that tailbone, that sacrum. So we're going to find that we're going to try and really, really allow the low back to meet the mat as much as possible. So you'll notice that the tailbone and the sacrum are starting to kind of make lift or curl up. And then we're going to go the other way. So we're going to try and get the sacrum to slowly come into contact with the earth, and then the tailbone. You'll notice the low back start to really round and go the other way. Low back plants down, tailbone lifts. And just find this movement for a couple rounds of breath. It can be at your own pace. You can go much more slower, more meticulous. Or maybe you do the movement quickly to begin with, and then slow it down to find a general resting place. And here we want, again, that sacrum, tailbone to be more flat against the ground. We can have a natural curve in our spine as we come here. It's just going to help us really target our glute when we come into our figure 4 stretch. I say when we come into it, you might already be feeling it in your right glute now. If not, we'll start to lift the left foot away from the ground, drawing the thighs in closer to the body. Be mindful of the sacrum and the tailbone, and when they want to start to lift, we'll pause there. Interlace the right hands, perhaps behind the left thigh, maybe on top of the left shin. This is a morning practice for me, so it'll be behind the thigh for sure. Very interesting how different points in the day change how your practice may look and how it feels. Finding our figure 4. Chin slightly drawing to chest, so we have a naturally long spine. Again, the low back can be lifted. Just try not to exaggerate the curve and find a more natural one. And then we're going to play about here again with that kind of rocking and rolling of the tailbone, the sacrum. So it might be that you still keep the hands interlaced, or you might take them to the side in little cactus arms, or it might be that you kind of hold on to the side of the mat or plant the palms. And we're going to find that lifting up of the tailbone, the placing down of the low back, and going the other way. So in and out with the legs. Finding the movement now through the back body, through the hips, rather than using our hands to make it a passive stretch. So we might feel the core start to wake up, or the hip flexor in the left leg become more active. I'm going to come back to that neutral place. Interlace our hands behind our head. And when we're ready, we'll inhale in, exhale, and lift the upper body up, coming up onto the shoulders, or the shoulder blades. We might find here that kind of crunching or curling action where we're going to try and find a bit of expansion, then a bit of curling up. So we're going to think of that tailbone lifting, hugging in, as we try and lift our shoulder blades off the ground, and then slightly release. Hug in and release. Hug in, curling up into a ball, release. 3 more times. And as we start to release, we'll bring the head back down to the ground, sole of the left foot towards the earth, and just a little moment to free up that space along the front of the left hip. Maybe elbows plant down into the ground or palms plant down. Press the left foot firmly down. Here, think tuck of that tailbone, so low back becomes a bit more flush with the mat, and we'll press down through the feet, squeeze the glutes, lift the hips up. You can by all means have both feet down on the ground rather than doing this one-legged bridge, just to feel a bit of openness along the front of the hips. Lowering ourselves back down, release the figure 4, maybe hug both knees in towards the chest, little rock and roll. Place the feet down, so now we just hug the left knee in, extending the right leg long, again thinking of that sacrum grounding down, the tailbone not lifting up, natural curve in the low back, finding those moments to be intentional in our practice. And when we're ready, that little back and forth or the tiny little circles with the left knee, finding a bit of movement, noticing what's going on, particularly in the front of the left hip. Don't worry if it feels quite tight here. It's essentially you're giving yourself a bit of self-massage with this movement. So it's similar to having like a sports massage where you feel that the knots are being worked out. And then taking the hands to interlace behind the thigh. Again, we can use a strap here if required. We want to have those feet nice and active, so pushing through both heels, the toes, as if they're trying to touch the shin or move towards the face. Really hugging that thigh in towards the torso, whether it's on top or the side, and we'll start to do the kicking up towards the sky. Really moving as far as we can into that leg extension while still having the torso and the thigh towards one another. Now here we should hopefully feel the shake. And the knee, most likely, still bent. If I was putting less effort in and I had my legs straight, I wouldn't be feeling the pose in the same way. I wouldn't be feeling into my body. And here we're focusing on sensation rather than shape. A pure intention. When we're ready, holding the last one at the top. Breathing. Gently release. We'll find our twist. So right hand to the outside of the left leg. Left arm can be out in a T or cactus arm just to help ground down through the left shoulder. And we'll draw that left leg over towards the right. Again, the intention of having the left shoulder towards the ground. But here, the purpose is just have the fronts of the shoulders facing in a different direction to the fronts of the hips. So however that materializes for you, you're in your twist. Maybe taking the gaze over towards the left. Maybe back through to the middle. We can always hug both knees in towards the chest for a second so that we can then place the soles of both feet down. Left leg's going to cross over the top of the right to find that figure 4 shape. A little bit of that rolling up and down, lower back flush, lower back lifting. To find that movement on this side, you may notice that this side could be very different in the body. I know that my left hip is different to my right. And when we're ready, finding our figure 4 shape. So perhaps the hands interlace behind the thigh, on top of the shin, or we use a strap. The right foot can always be on a block and the hands free. if we need some height, but not as much as our hands interlacing gives us. And think here again of that tailbone. Instead of lifting up, having the intention, the awareness to roll the sacrum down. So the tailbone's more like it's kind of laying flat rather than curling up. The reason I say have the top part of the, or just above the ankle on top of the thigh, is so that we're not finding that we're using ankle mobility rather than coming into the hip. Every little cue, every little setup mention is all for the purpose of our intention of doing this pose in our practice. When we're ready, maybe the hands stay, maybe the hands release. We'll hug the legs closer towards the body by curling that tailbone up and then planting it back down. There can be slow movements that can be quite fast. Feeling a little bit of a wake up. And then when we're ready, interlacing hands behind the head. Elbows wide, inhaling in, exhaling, drawing the shoulders away from the ground, coming up onto those shoulder blades. Try and keep the elbows wide as we start to curl into ourselves and then gently release. You can do this faster, slower. And into inhales, I expand, and exhale as I draw in, curling up into the smallest little ball that I can. And again, small ball is relative, may look different for everyone. Gently releasing the sole of the right foot down to the ground, as well as the head, finding a placement of the hands to support, as we then really curl the tailbone up, place the low back down towards the ground, firmly press the right foot down, and lift the hips up, our one-legged bridge pose. Gently release down. Release both legs. You can always extend them long. Fingertips overhead, point the toes. And we're going to come up to all fours. That might be rolling onto your side. I like to take the hands behind the thighs, rock and roll up. Finding my way into all fours. So in all fours, you'll have your wrists roughly underneath the shoulders, knees roughly underneath the hips. And finding again that neutral spine, which after our work on awareness in the space with the back on the ground, we might already feel that, imagining like we still got the earth on our back body to support. We're going to do a little bit of movement into our hips, starting with the left leg, so it's easier for you guys to see on the camera. So for a moment, I'm going to curl the toes under, and I'm then going to start to lift the left heel up towards the sky. Now note again, we're not trying to round into the low back to come into a back bend. We'll try and keep everything else neutral, moving just from within the hip. We'll start to open the left leg over and out towards the side, like, you know, my favorite expression, dog weeing on a fire hydrant. And we'll draw that leg back in and underneath and kick back up. So trying to imagine like we're like almost scraping out any of the batter in a bowl, and that bowl being your hip socket with your femur. Really finding the edges of that movement. As we go around, you can tell I'm really concentrating. As we go through, we're going to find it going in the other direction now. So opening up as if we're dog weeing on a fire hydrant and coming back up and round, heel towards the sky. Out to the side, round and up. Being aware of strong arms being our foundation here, as well as that back leg. And finally, on this side, we'll do one more kick up and out like we're dog weeing on a fire hydrant. And we're going to see if we can draw that left knee over towards either our left elbow or left tricep. And then kick the heel back up to the sky. Left knee to left elbow and kick back up. left knee to left elbow, kick back up. And this time as we draw the left knee over to the left elbow, left tricep, we're going to see if we can place that left foot down towards the ground. You might adjust your stance. I like to curl the back toes under and scoot that back knee back. Finding a variation of a lizard lunge. Right hand can plant either on the floor, blocks, fingertips. We're going to take the left hand, place it inside the left thigh, and just move the leg away from the midline. So you might find that the right hip sinks a bit more towards the ground and we find a bit of a twist. Or you might prefer more to be facing the body forward as we open the leg to the side. A couple of options here for finding what best suits you. By all means, the right forearm can also be on the ground rather than the hand, if that is calling you. When we're ready, drawing that leg back in through center, taking both hands down towards the ground. Here we have options, obviously hands on blocks, fingertips. Maybe it's that front foot isn't firmly planted down on the ground. Obviously all options come from awareness of ourselves. And when we're here, we're going to find that left hand plants down. You can always use a block in this space if needed. We're going to do one final pull of kind of drawing the wrists more towards the knee as we think of reaching the collarbones forward. Think of moving the left big toe more firmly down into the ground. Finding a bit of activation, a bit of reach here of the chest forward. Then we're going to curl the back toes under, lift the back knee. Left hand stays planted on floor or block. We'll find a pivot on the right foot, so the right toes face the long edge of the mat on the right hand side. And we're going to peel the right fingertips up towards the sky, finding our extended side angle. Now please bear in mind we can lift ourselves away from the ground, hand on block. We can lean on the thigh instead if we prefer. One breath here just to find this shape. And then releasing the right hand down towards the ground as the right toes pivot back. Right knee down, taking the bum towards the back heel, finding a half split variation. Hands can be on the ground, block, or towards the chest. We're going to move in and out of those two poses. Then we're going to come back towards our lunge. Left hand plants down, pivot on the right toes, peel right fingertips up towards the sky. Then right hand down towards the ground to meet the left. Pivot on the back toes, find our half split. We'll do this a few more times. Feel free to keep the hands involved down on the ground. Or you might find that you experiment with a bit of hands-free movement. I'll demonstrate some different variations of ways that you can dance the hands. And do not worry if you find that you lose your balance. It's all part of the journey. That's why we challenge ourselves so we can grow. We can find ourselves experiencing these new shapes. Next time that our hands come down towards the ground and our back knee is planted, we're in our lizard lunge. We're going to curl the back toes under, lift the back knee. We might find that front foot we turn on a slight angle. We're going to notice what the back foot's doing here. So maybe a little rock back and forth. Feel as if you could push the ground away with the back foot. And here we're going to imagine as if we can feel that we can really pull ourselves forward with the front foot, as if we're trying to draw that front heel back to give us a bit of momentum along with the push of the back foot. We're going to find what's known as an active squat. So maybe up on fingertips, pull and push, step the right foot towards the outside of the right hand. We might put the forearms towards the thighs here, finding a little bit of a bounce to get used to the shape. If you feel this in the legs, don't worry, I do too. Then we're going to lift the torso up while we keep the legs reasonably the same. Arms out in front. Inhale in. Exhale, hands to heart center, straightening the legs, standing up tall. Inhale the arms up towards the sky, maybe a squeeze of the glutes, a press of the hips forward. Exhale, hands together down through heart center. Find your active squat. Hands plant, can be fingertips if preferred. Step the right and the left foot back to your downward facing dog. Take a little moment here, press into the palms, push down through the heels, doesn't matter whether they're anywhere near the ground or not. Wag that tailbone up towards the sky. So instead of thinking of curling the tailbone under, think of when we did that figure 4 shape, how we wanted to really rest the sacrum and the tailbone down towards the ground. And when we're ready, we'll come up on the toes, bend the knees, allow the knees to come down towards the earth. We'll find our hip movement on the other side. So making that strong foundation, wrists underneath our shoulders, knees roughly underneath the hips. Maybe a little curl of the right toes under for a second so we get that stompy foot action as we kick the sole of the right foot towards the sky. Then starting to peel open, but trying to find the edge of that range. Dog weighing on a fire hydrant. Hug the leg underneath. Kick back up. So finding these hip circles, or technically, CARS, controlled articular rotational movements, working within the hip. A couple more times here, being mindful of our arms and our spine, making sure as much movement as possible is coming from the area we're targeting. And when we're ready, we'll go in the other direction. Maybe slowing things down. I know that sometimes I go fast. Allowing yourself to take the time to be more specific, more intentional. And then taking our right knee towards the right tricep, the right elbow, and kicking back up. Right knee to right tricep, and kicking back up. One more time. Before we then take the knee to tricep and step the right foot outside the hands. Maybe adjusting the length of the stance. Hands plant, can always use props. And here I'm thinking of pressing the hands firmly down as if I'm trying to drag the heel of the hands towards my back knee, reaching the collarbones forward. I'm thinking of having the intention of trying to place the right big toe down. Inhale in here, feel the expansion across the chest. Maybe feeling more sensation within the hips. Right hand will come to the inside of the right thigh. Feel free to let that right big toe mound move away from the ground if we want to find a real opening up in the hip. Maybe we find a twist. Maybe we decide to continue to look forward. I mean, that hand can always be planted down with the leg open to the side if we prefer. Drawing that leg back in, hands plant, curl the back toes under, lift the back toes. The right hand remains planted, at least for the beginning of the movement. As we pivot on the left toes, they face the long edge of the mat, and we peel the left fingertips towards the sky. Now you may note I've taken my right hand off the ground, particularly on this side, to find my capability in this place. So listen to your body. Both hands come down, pivot on the back toes, draw the bum towards the heel at the back, finding a half split. Shifting forward, right hand plants, pivot on the back toes, open up to our extended side angle. Moving through the half split, extended side angle transitions, however you wish on this side. I'm already getting the sensation that when I go hands free with this, I'm not quite so balanced on this side. We'll see how it goes. Have a little explore at what the mat holds for us today. Next time that we move into our lizard lunge, we'll curl the back toes under, lift the back knee. Again, thinking of that drawing back of the heel as if you can pull yourself forward, and that push off of the back toes. I'm going to come up onto fingertips. I suggest you do the same here. Maybe turn the right toes on a slight angle. When we're ready, we'll push and pull. Step forward into our active squat. Inhale in here, exhale, hands to heart center as we stand. Inhaling the arms up to the sky and exhaling hands down through active squat. We're going to take what's known as awakening A's here, a set of vinyasas. So from our active squat, hands down to the ground, we're going to find ourselves in a downward facing dog, stepping left foot and right foot back. In our down dog, you can either step one foot then the other outside the hands to come into active squat, or you might find you come up on the toes, bend the knees, look to where you're going and do a hop. When we get there, we'll inhale, active squat, exhale to stand. Inhale the arms up towards the sky and exhale hands down through heart center, active squat. Hinge at the hips, hands plant. We can step back to down dog, or we can plant the hands, look forward, maybe take a vinyasa. So I'm doing the awakening A vinyasa style, which you can always find a video on my page, but you can find whichever vinyasa suits you. Up on the toes, bend the knees, look at where you're going, either step or hop. Inhale, active squat. Exhale, hands to heart center as we stand. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, hands down through heart center, active squat. Hinge at the hips, place the hands down. Vinyasa or not, your choice. We'll all meet in downward facing dog. 2 more rounds. Up on the toes, bend the knees, look where you're going, step or hop. Inhale, active squat. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, arms to sky. Exhale, sitting ourselves back down. Hinge at the hips, hands down, your vinyasa. From down dog, 1 more go. Up on the toes, bend the knees, step, float, jump, active squat. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, sit back down. Hands to the floor. This time, stepping right and left foot back to our downward facing dog. Feel free to put the knees down, sit back on the heels, or we might find our resting pose in our down dog here. Moving in to the warrior series. When we're ready, lifting the right leg up to the sky, a bend in the right knee, come up on the left toes and draw the right knee towards the nose, just so we can step the right foot in between the hands. We'll pivot on the left foot, finding very similar to that extended side angle starting point, except we're going to lift both arms out at shoulder height. In our warrior 2, a very familiar pose, I'm sure, to a lot of us. But just because it's a familiar pose doesn't mean that this is a checkbox activity. Yes, it's familiar, but it gives us a chance to really have or draw on some real insight. So perhaps here the focus is on your drishti or your gaze. You look past that front middle finger. Maybe then you become aware of what the legs are feeling like, what the legs are doing. So similar to when we went from the lizard lunge to the active squat, when we thought of drawing that front heel in as if we're trying to pull ourselves forward, think of that same pull with the front and that push of the outside edge of the back foot. Finding this kind of drawing in, this hugging in to center. So we should feel this real effort within ease, hence the name warrior. Taking 1 more deep breath here. When we're ready, our left hand is going to come down to the ground inside the right foot, and we're going to pivot on the back toes. So left hand down. Now option here to either just come into a twist. I say just come into a twist. It will feel glorious. Peeling the right fingertips up towards the sky. Or an option to come into a side plank variation. Either modified or some other variation. Maybe taking the right foot on top of the leg. Maybe coming into a version of wild thing. Maybe drawing the right knee in towards the upper body. Finding your choice, your place. And when we're ready, stepping with as much grace, the right foot back forward if it wasn't already there. And we'll place our right hand inside the right foot, somewhere you've been before. Again, familiarity, but where can we find something new? And peeling the left fingertips up towards the sky, finding your extended side angle. So maybe we find a little more depth in the hips. We think of that push and that pull that we had in our warrior, noticing the legs are very similar in warrior as they are to extended side angle. When we're ready, finding our reverse warrior. So I like to bring my left hand towards my heart and scoop and reach the right hand up and back as I keep the bend in the right knee. Deep breath in here, feeling expansion along the front body, along the front of that back hip. Coming up through center, straightening the front leg and finding our triangle pose. Sometimes I like to shorten the stance here. With triangle, again, finding this intention in our poses rather than just trying to make a shape. I like to turn my hips slightly on an angle to face the top left-hand corner of the mat. That's going to give me this hinge. We want to feel this in our hamstring, and then we're focusing on peeling open. So slightly turning the hips. Again, I might even shorten my stance a little bit more. And I'm going to take my right thumb or any of your right fingers and really place them into that right hip crease. Think hinge, 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 drawing the right hip crease back as I reach the heart forward. If we still can't feel it in the hamstring, maybe think of that pulling back action of driving that heel back towards the back foot. And only then, when we have this hinge, this sensation, take the right hand anywhere it wants to go towards the leg. You might keep it in the hip on a block. And the left hand is going to peel the torso open. You'll find this rotation. I like to use the hand and imagine as if I'm sweeping, as if I'm guiding the heart to open. And take the gaze up towards the left fingertips. If this is too much, you can always bend through the right knee or not come down into so deep a hinge. Deep breath in here. Feel the shape, the push towards the outside edge of that back foot, the draw in of the front heel. Notice the action. Again, very similar to other poses. But how do the sensations here differ? And we'll pivot on the back toes. Place both hands down. We'll kick the right leg up to three-legged dog. Option here to take the right knee and take it out towards the right tricep. Or maybe we try and find an arm balance by taking the right knee over towards that right tricep. Perhaps finding a lift. Not quite there for me today. Kicking the legs back, finding our plank pose, and move through your choice of vinyasa. Or always skip it. Back to downward facing dog. Warrior 2 on the other side. Lift the left leg up to the sky. A bend in the left knee. Up on the right toes. Left knee to nose. To step the left foot in between the hands. Pivot those right toes towards the long right side of the mat. Pressing down through the feet. Release the hands from the ground and peel them open to shoulder height. Finding yourself in Warrior 2. Again, allowing your awareness or your level of self-study to come into play. What's your body telling you? Where can you maybe find places to grow? Can you perhaps sink a little deeper? Can you activate through the legs? Maybe a tuck of the tailbone, a lift of the lower belly up. Allowing ourselves to pivot on the back toes, finding the right hand come down inside the left leg, either twisted lunge or your variation of a side plank. Any variation that you choose. How slowly, how mindfully can we look towards the top of the mat and allow the left foot to travel there. Pivoting on those back toes, they face the long right hand side of the mat once more. Left hand down inside the left foot. Peel those right fingertips towards the sky. Find your extended side angle. How is it the same? How is it different to the ones we did prior? I like to reach the right hand towards the heart. Scoop up and back with the left hand, reverse warrior. Still finding that push and pull through the legs. Straightening through the front leg as we begin to find and adjust our stance for triangle pose. Maybe turning the hips, left thumb, left hand in the hip crease. Find the hinge, 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 reaching the heart out, just like we reach the collarbones forward in our lizard pose. Then placing the hands and finding this peeling open of the heart towards the side of the room or towards the sky. Looking down to where you're going, pivot on the back toes, hands placed down. We'll kick the left foot up and back, three-legged dog. Here we might find that we put a bend in the left knee and find left knee towards tricep. Or perhaps attempt flying pigeon. Finding ourselves back in a plank and vinyasa or skip it. Meeting back in downward facing dog. One more run through of warrior series on both sides. A little bit quicker this time. Right leg to the sky, bend in the right knee. Step the right foot in between the hands. Peel open, warrior two. And note you don't have to be still here. You can find a settling in, a readjusting, a recalibrating. Side plank, left hand down towards the ground, or obviously twisted lunge. Your variation. Stepping that right foot back forward, extended side angle. How do they feel working through them a bit quicker as well? Left hand to heart, reach and scoop up and back with the right hand. Reverse warrior. Straightening through the front leg, adjust the stance. Triangle. Hands frame either side of the front foot. Kick back, three-legged dog. Knee to tricep. Or arm balance. We'll meet in plank for vinyasa, or skip it and meet in downward facing dog. From down dog, left leg lifts, bend in the left knee up on the right toes, left knee to nose to step, left foot in between the hands, pivot on the back toes, press down firmly through the feet to open up. Warrior two. Right hand comes down, either for twisted lunge or your variation of side plank. Step the left foot forward. Left hand down inside the left foot, extended side angle. Right hand to heart, left arm reaches out, up and back, reverse warrior. Straightening through the front leg, adjusting the stance, triangle. Hands plant either side of the front foot as we pivot on the back toes. Three-legged dog. Either left knee to tricep or find the arm balance. Coming back to plank. Move through your vinyasa or skip it. And as we come to downward facing dog, we'll just take a moment to lower the knees. Sit back on the heels. Maybe close the eyes and take a few breaths. Maybe hand on heart, hand on belly. Noticing our heartbeat. Where do we feel the breath moving to? What's the pace of our inhales and our exhales? They say comparison is the thief of joy, but I feel when we're comparing different aspects of our own practice, perhaps our breath now compared to our breath at the beginning, it's more of a reference point just to know how far we've come and the effect our practice has had on us. When we're ready, we'll move back into down dog, just a transition to the end of our sequence today. Moving ourselves forward, up and back. Here we're going to take our right leg and step it over more towards the left-hand side of the mat. This is going to allow us to drop both of our knees down to the ground. So we're finding this kind of twisty-legged, all fours. Feel free to untuck the toes if they were still tucked. And it might be that you're in this place where you just start to reach the bum back and do a little wiggle here and feel that in your glutes and your hips. Maybe this is where we're at. Or maybe you come down into Gomukhasana, cow legs, with the bum on the floor. I'm just going to turn to face you. Readjust my hair from our flow. So whatever variation of Gomukhasana cow legs you have, whether that is with your hands still on the ground and you're moving back and forth, or here in a seated position, we'll just take a few breaths here. Either upright or perhaps folded forward if we find more sensation there. Options here to find a side stretch. So it might be that you place the right fingertip to the right forearm to the ground on the right hand side and lift the left arm up and over. Maybe a bend in the left elbow and a peeling or turning of the heart towards the sky. A reach. A bend and open. A reach. Bend and open. Coming up through center, we'll release the legs, whether it be releasing them and coming back into your down dog or leaning forward to come out. And back to down dog for the other side. So left leg crosses in front of the right, place both knees down. And we'll rock back and forth. Kind of this is the space for us to settle into. Maybe the bum comes down to the ground. Alternatively, it can always sit on a block. A moment here. Maybe left fingertips down, left forearm down. We reach the right arm up and over, finding a side stretch. Option to bend the right elbow, peel the heart open towards the sky, and then reach back over towards the left. Bend and open. Reach. Bend and open. Reach. Finding our way back to down dog. When we get there, allowing the knees to come down to the ground. A couple options for a final place of stillness. Maybe big toes together, bum towards the heels, extend the hands out. Or to the sides to find a child's pose. This is quite a good place for our themes of coming back into ourself and self-study. Or perhaps you prefer to lay on your back, maybe in constructive rest. Allowing yourself some time here even after the video officially ends. Some time perhaps to think about how our specificity in the cues and our areas of focus and our intention perhaps moved the practice forward or helped you feel things that maybe you hadn't acknowledged you were feeling in certain asana before. Stay here as long as you need. Thank you so much for joining me for your pure intention flow today. Namaste. Have a lovely day.